The Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union and their respective allies, dominated the international landscape from the late 1940s to the early 1990s. This era, characterized by ideological conflict, proxy wars, and the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation, profoundly shaped global politics and society. Origins of the Cold War. The roots of the Cold War can be traced to fundamental ideological differences between the United States, championing democracy and capitalism, and the Soviet Union, advocating for communism and a centrally planned economy. These ideological differences were exacerbated by historical distrust and conflicting post-war ambitions. Ideological differences. The United States, a capitalist democracy, viewed Soviet communism as a threat to its values and way of life. The Soviet Union, wary of Western capitalist expansion and fearful of another invasion, sought to establish a buffer zone of communist states in Eastern Europe. Post-war ambitions. Disagreements over the future of Europe further fueled tensions. The United States envisioned a united and democratic Germany, while the Soviet Union aimed to maintain its influence in Eastern Europe. Key events and developments. The Cold War unfolded through a series of key events and developments. The Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. In 1947, President Truman announced the Truman Doctrine, pledging U.S. support to countries resisting communist expansion. The Marshall Plan, a massive economic aid package for Western Europe, aimed to strengthen democratic institutions and prevent the spread of communism. The Berlin Blockade and Airlift. In 1948, the Soviet Union blockaded West Berlin, cutting off access to the western sectors of the city. The United States and its allies responded with the Berlin Airlift, successfully supplying West Berlin by air for over a year. The formation of NATO and the Warsaw Pact. In 1949, the United States and its Western allies formed the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a military alliance for collective defense. In response, the Soviet Union and its Eastern European allies established the Warsaw Pact in 1955. The Korean War. The Korean War was a proxy war between US-backed South Korea and Soviet-backed North Korea, highlighting the dangers of Cold War tensions spilling over into open conflict. The Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1962, the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba. A tense standoff ensued, ultimately resulting in the removal of Soviet missiles and a renewed commitment to arms control. The Space Race. The Cold War fueled a fierce competition between the United States and the Soviet Union in the space race. Driven by both scientific ambition and the desire for technological and military superiority. The Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was another devastating proxy war, pitting the United States against communist North Vietnam. The war had a profound impact on American society and ultimately contributed to the decline of U.S. power. Détente. In the 1970s, a period of détente emerged, characterized by a thawing of relations between the United States and the Soviet Union. Arms control agreements, such as SALT I and SALT II, were signed, and cultural exchanges increased. The end of the Cold War. The Cold War began to unravel in the late 1980s with the rise of Mikhail Gorbachev in the Soviet Union. Gorbachev's policies of glasnost and perestroika led to significant reforms within the Soviet Union. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989, symbolizing the end of the Iron Curtain and the collapse of communist rule in Eastern Europe. In 1991, the Soviet Union itself dissolved, marking the end of the Cold War. Consequences of the Cold War. The Cold War had a profound and lasting impact on global politics, society, and culture. The arms race. The constant threat of nuclear war led to a massive arms race, resulting in the accumulation of vast arsenals of nuclear weapons. This arms race had significant economic and social consequences. Proxy wars and global conflict. The Cold War fueled numerous proxy wars and conflicts around the world, causing immense human suffering and instability. Ideological divisions. The ideological divisions of the Cold War shaped political and social discourse for decades, influencing foreign policy, domestic politics, and cultural expression. The space race and technological advancement. The Cold War spurred significant technological advancements, particularly in the fields of aerospace, computing, and nuclear energy. The end of an era. The end of the Cold War ushered in a new era of global politics, characterized by the rise of new powers, the globalization of the economy, and the challenges of terrorism and international security. The Cold War remains a pivotal period in modern history, shaping the world we live in today. Its legacy continues to influence international relations, political discourse, and our understanding of global power dynamics.